Want a simple world? Follow the simple world.
We haven't talked about the terrorist group Islamic State for some days, which shows that it's not doing well currently. As the dust settled in the Middle East, the soil that Islamic State can survive is shrinking. This group is like a criminal gang that goes around trying their luck wherever the situation is unstable. If there were no more conflict in the Middle East in future, then the Islamic State would be finished for good. The founder of Islamic State is called Zarqawi. He once worked in Al-Qaeda as an entry-level management, where he mastered the full set of management skills before going to Iraq. In Iraq, he set up an anti-American armed force and harassed the U.S. troops based there. This irritated the U.S. troops, who went to great lengths to get rid of Zarqawi. Faced with mighty U.S. troops, the anti-American force stayed low for a couple of years and re-emerged only after the outbreak of the Arab Spring. They claimed territories in the remote areas of Iraq and Syria and established the Islamic State by merging and reorganizing. Just like each dog has its day, the Islamic State reached its peak in 2015. Their main business at that time was oil reselling and plundering in a very good financial condition. So they recruited all over the world and destroyed everywhere. What they destroyed were not only the peaceful lives of the local people, but also the cultural relics. In August 2015, the Islamic State detonated explosives in the Temple of Baalshaminis, turning the temple into a pile of rubble with huge bang. Temple of Baalshaminis was built in early 1st century AD, almost 2,000 years ago, when it was probably in China's Han Dynasty. The temple was originally dedicated to the gods of the Roman and Byzantine empires, and was later used as a Christian church. 500 years after the temple was built, the Arabs rushed into Damascus and brought Islam to Syria. For Muslims, the Temple of Baalshaminis is a relic of the pagan. Since it was left behind by the pagan, of course it was not welcome. The temple had been dilapidated in 2,000 years, leaving only 7 of the original 390 giant pillars, but it was still spectacular. When the Islamic State terrorists first arrived in the ancient city of Palmyra, they were stunned by the spectacular 7 pillars. But in the guidance of the fundamentalists, the Islamic State was doomed not to tolerate the pride of this temple. In the eyes of the fundamentalists, all other religions are paganism. Their attitude toward the pagan depends on their mood, maltreating them when they're in a good mood, and eliminating them when in a bad mood. So, in brief, they cannot get along with them. Bewitched by this guiding ideology, the Temple of Baalshaminis suffered as a relic of the pagan and was terminated from our planet on August 23, 2015. When the footage of the temple's destruction was released, the public was shocked. Ban Ki-moon, the then Secretary General of the United Nations, condemned it first, and all countries followed to denounce the crime committed by ISIS. However, the response of the general public was not that strong, and there was not a particularly sad mood. Neither one donated to rebuild it, nor mentioned they were all Syrian today. Back then, the civil war of Syria was still going on, and the Temple of Baalshaminis was soon forgotten. Comparing with the fire on Notre Dame de Paris, it was really poignant on how little attention the Temple of Baalshaminis attracted. When Notre Dame de Paris was on fire, politicians from many countries stopped their work at hand and sent condolences to the French President Macron. People around the world watched the news on TV with tears and expressed their sadness online. When Macron vowed to rebuild Notre Dame de Paris, he got $900 million donations in just 3 days. Meanwhile, restoration experts with different backgrounds are all eager to be summoned. So how do we measure the value of a cultural relic? If something similar was sold in an auction house, it is possible to put a price tag on it, but it is not possible to sell a temple or church. So whether the 2,000-year-old Temple of Baalshaminis is worth more, or the 850-year-old Notre Dame de Paris is more valuable, it is really a hard choice. But from the attention and treatment they received after destruction, it seems the historical buildings are not equally valued. Obviously, Notre Dame de Paris worth more. What drew people's attention on Notre Dame de Paris was mainly because it's located in France instead of Syria. If it was burned in Syria, Macron would be less likely to receive that many condolences, let alone those spams online. it is also less realistic to collect money to repair it. Consequently, whether a cultural relic is welcome or not mostly depends on which country it is located. If you look through the international news as a daily routine like Mr.Politics, you will find out the country enjoying the privilege to grab the headline regularly are just about 20. Yet, there are a total of 193 countries registered by the UN, which means only 10% of countries are active in the world politics stage, captivating us repeatedly. The other 170 countries have to take backseats. If we don't take initiative to know them, they will just remain out of limelight. And who are they for the 20 headline-grabbing countries? What ranks top is definitely the US, and the second are the EU countries with frequently interacting with America. To be specific, are those ones playing leading roles in the EU, like Germany, France, Britain, Italy, etc. Moreover, Russia also has a relatively large headline traffic due to the US antagonism, as well as China, who keeps business relationship with all those mentioned above. In addition to these big or strong countries, others listed are just playing a minimal role. Countries getting along well with the Uncle Sam can hit the headlines on ground of frequent interactions, such as Israel, India, Japan, Korea, and Canada, etc. On the contrary, those who are on bad terms with America get to be catchy occasionally, namely Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, and Turkey, and so on. Except the aforementioned some 20 countries, other countries may occasionally hit the headlines, but if it happens, it is usually because of some big events, either a military coup, or earthquake, or debt crisis, or internal conflicts. Only these kind of things can make those countries the front page, but these do not happen every day, so their sense of presence is very low. Without the Syrian civil war, which has lasted for more than 6 years, without the involvement of the United States and Russia, the two hotspot countries, Syria would not be as famous as it is today. But France is another story. It is an old capitalist nation located in Western Europe. It scores world level high in many aspects and has been praised in various ways, and is also one of the preferred destinations for many people's honeymoons. Because of the good impressions France left to the world, it keeps attractive to people. So people are willing to spend money to travel there, to visit Avenue des Champs-Élysées, to take selfies in the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and post in their social media. People only show off the beautiful side of France, and its enormous popularity has a positive impact. So France's beautiful images continue spreading, which attract more people to save their money for a trip to France. Of course, France has many internal problems, for example, a large number of Africans settled in France, which triggers ethnic antagonism and religious conflict. The public security in Paris is not good, robbery as well as theft happen frequently, and tourism even breeds in some blocks. But the problems will not change France's positive image. When the country's overall strength and influence reach to a certain level, negative news has little impact, which is probably the reflection that flaws cannot obscure the virtues. When Notre Dame de Paris was on fire, in the eyes of many netizens, disaster struck the lofty France. Sympathy and sadness arose spontaneously from their heart. Many people haven't been to France and don't know the history of Notre Dame de Paris either, but these did not affect their sadness at the sight of the flames. But when we talk about Syria, the impressions that occurs to our mind is probably not good. The Syrian government runs like a family business. The current leader is a man named Assad. He ruled the people there cruelly. Syria is a place full of warfare. The natural resources are exhausted, and the climate is harsh there. Local people live a hard life. Now that Syria left us such an impression, so when the temple of Baalshaminis was blown up, people may not feel sad, nor even any feelings. Both the Temple of Baalshaminis and Notre Dame de Paris were ruined, but they invoked completely different results in public opinion, which reflect the distinction of the comprehensive strength between Syria and France. France's comprehensive strength is very strong, which left a good impression on the outside world, thus having many friends worldwide. The things in their possession are getting significant, even their cultural relics can draw more attention. Why did Syria leave us a bad impression? It is because the media reports on Syria have not been friendly. In the front pages of the international news, most of the influential medias come from Europe and America. And the reports from Euro-American media on Syria are destined to be negative, either war or refugees. When those not-too-good reports flood the screens, the overall impression of Syria was shaped for the public. In the eyes of the Euro-American countries, regimes that are different from them are not good and should be condemned. Once the prejudice is preset, the reportings on that country can hardly to be positive. Syria is such an unlucky country as it does not leave a good impression on the outside world. So when the temple of Baalshamin was turned into piles of rubble, it is not likely for the public to feel sad for that. However, the media have done nothing wrong, because they need eye-catching contents to keep their business prosperous. The readers influenced by the media are also not wrong, since they have understood the reports correctly. Blame Syria if you like, for that it does not have a high enough international status, but who is to be blamed for a country's international status?